Rob Thomas with Club and Resort Business, and today's episode of Club and Resort Talks is brought to us by Club Procure. Club Procure offers clubs myriad ways to save time and money. More than 3,000 clubs nationwide leverage Club Procure strategic relationships with well-known companies and gain tremendous buying power. Pick and choose which offerings work best for you. And that's our Club Procure talk. Now I've got Phil Karen to talk to. He's our associate editor. Phil, what's going on in the news today?
Well, Rob, we've had some interesting things this week. We've had stories this week that were both kind of about innovations in the industry and also a couple of historical items to note too. The Oceans Golf Club Par 3 course in Daytona Beach, Florida. They got a 4-month project going on right now. They're overhauling all the tee boxes on a 13-hole layout, and the course itself plays at 1,100 yards. And it's interesting because actually we just finished up the July print issue of Club and Resort Business, Rob, and my column is actually talking about creative, innovative ways that are going on to get golfers interested in the game without having to, if you will, go through a bunch of doors, the traditional elements, which often require a lot of time and money investment, as we know. So I think that's neat. They've got a 13-hole layout that plays 1,100 yards. And I think that's an exciting way to get started into the game. Quicker as far as time and everything. And it's just an example of a way to enter the game quicker. You know, we have Top Golf and Pop Stroke, the Tiger Woods project. And of course, the other thing was that I learned with that real quick is that Par 3 courses are on the rise. In 2021, Par 3 courses actually had a net increase for the first time since 2000, according to the National Golf Foundation. So I think it's neat now. Oceans Golf Club and that innovation, or the overhaul of the tees, is going to be finished in mid-September. But again, it's a course where you kind of combining two of those elements of making golf a quicker adventure. Par 3 plus an unusual layout. As we know, some courses are doing the 6-hole and the 12-hole as well. So that's neat.
No kidding. I played Gary Player's mountaintop golf course in the Ozarks not too long ago, a couple of years now. Yeah. But same concept, 13 holes and par 3s. You can put teed up wherever you want and playing 5-somes, 6-somes, 8-somes, whatever the case may be. It's fantastic.
It is. You know, and you touched on another quick element there too. I like that idea too, of just that quick innovation of teeing up wherever you want. I mean, if we're not in a tournament, if we're not in a league, if you're not playing to set your handicap or whatever, if it's some just unofficial fun thing to do, why not let people try it out that way and see what they think of the game, right?
Yeah, we had they gave us a wooden spike. Basically, we throw it down the ground, and whoever won the hole got to choose where we tee up the next hole. You want a 120-yard par 3, you want a 210-yard par 3, whatever the case. So it was real fun. It had a different element to the game. It was a lot of good time.
Yeah, definitely.
So what else you got going on?
Anything? The other item, which was interesting, as we know, some golf courses, particularly ones in the West, in the South, dry conditions, drought conditions, you're struggling with kind of maintaining the course. Corpus Christi, Texas, I guess right now they are dealing with drought conditions so bad that there's actually water restrictions in place for people living there. So Oso Beach Golf Course and Lozano Golf Course in Corpus Christi are using treated wastewater to help maintain the course. At the Oso, the treated wastewater, it's flowing through the ponds at the course. It's coming from a water reclamation plant nearby. It's used to irrigate the course. The effluent is it's a liquid waste that's been treated. Can't be used as drinking water, but it's safe for irrigation. They're using that at the Lozano course. They're getting that from a treatment plant nearby. So, and without this source, obviously those drought restrictions would be very difficult for those courses to overcome.
Yeah, I wish more courses would have turf that was able to take that. And I know there's some working on it right now. They got in the labs trying to figure out what turfs are hardy enough to stand up for effluent water. It's fantastic. It'd be great boom for the industry if we can get that going on.
Right. Absolutely. Other ones, then I was mentioning a couple things from the past, or I guess nods to the past that we were seeing in our news coverage this week. Clubhouse at Hiawatha Golf Course in Minneapolis, Minnesota. The clubhouse there is now named in honor of Solomon Hughes Sr. Mr. Hughes died in 1987. I, to be honest, was not familiar with him before we came on here with this today. But as I understand it, he and Ted Hughes back in 1948 challenged the PGA to allow them to enter the 1948 St. Paul Open. They're both black golfers. At that time, the PGA still had restrictions on allowing black players to play in their tournaments. They challenged it tried to enter the 1948 St. Paul Open. Request was denied. They actually had none other than Joe Louis, the great boxer, advocated on their behalf. Took a few years, but then 1952 St. Paul Open, Mr. Hughes and Ted Rhodes, they became the first professional black players to compete in a PGA event. That's per Mr. Hughes. There's a training academy in his name now. His website has that history there. It was very interesting to learn that. So anyways, Minnesota kind of became his home state because he had moved there in the 40s. So this course decided to name the clubhouse in his honor. They had a ceremony for that earlier this week, and his son, actually, Solomon Hughes Jr., was there as well.
That's terrific news.
It is. Yeah, a neat element of history I had not known about before, and interesting to see how Joe Louis was in their corner, if you will, on that.
Yeah.
So
Good
the
point.
other one was real quick. The golf course in Richmond, Virginia, Glenwood Golf Club. It's actually closing on Thursday, June 30th. It's their last day. They've been in business 95 years, the golf course. The owners there, Frank Adams, Harry Griffin, decided it was time to sell the course. Mr. Adams, and property is going to be converted into a 290 home subdivision. Mr. Adams he's 68 years old. He's worked there for 53 years.
Wow.
He started out, he was mowing the grass. He said his father was working at the course at the time, and spent three quarters of his life there working at this course. The two gentlemen, Mr. Adams and Mr. Griffin, both said they're going to perhaps do a final synchronized shot here to mark the occasion. So
yeah, they both wanted to hit the final shot. I read
yes.
that.
Yeah.
I don't blame them.
Yeah, I don't blame them. Yeah.
Well,
I don't know if they want to do a mulligan if it's not a good shot. Maybe.
Yeah, no, you don't want the last shot to be the worst shot.
Exactly. Right.
I'll tell you what, prior to COVID, we were seeing a lot of courses closing down. And the COVID pandemic was terrible across the globe, obviously, but it did provide a boost to the golf industry. And related to that, Brian Friederichs, CEO of Capstone Hospitality, and I talked a little bit about that and what they're doing for clubs on the membership side. And hopefully, you're not going to see as many clubs like Glenwood that are closing down. 95 years, that's a shame. But I understand. Hey, they're moving on with their lives, and
right.
So I'm not faulting them. Before COVID, a lot of courses were closing down. But Brian Friedrichs, CEO for Capstone Hospitality, and I talked a lot about not only the effects of COVID, but how clubs are working their way through membership lists and wait lists and trying to avoid the wait list, getting people in there and not capping their membership quite so quickly. But if you stick around, you can watch and listen to that particular interview shortly thereafter. And tell you what, next week, you and I will be back, Phil, and we'll talk about the newest, the latest and greatest going on. And we'll have another guest.
Sounds good.
Phil, sit back and enjoy, Mr. Friedrichs, and we'll see you next week. Our guest on Club Resort Talks today is Brian Friedrichs, CEO of Capstone Hospitality. Welcome to the show.
Thanks, Rob. Appreciate you having me on.
Hey, Brian, if you would, real quick, could you give us an elevator pitch? What does Capstone do?
Yeah, pretty simple. We sell memberships for private clubs across the country. We're in a wide range of clubs, from resort style clubs like the Biltmore in Coral Gables and Nemacolin and Woodlands Resort in Pennsylvania, to high-end equity clubs, to privately owned clubs, to big corporate owned clubs. And really what we do is we come in, we staff one of our highly trained salespeople in that execute on our proven methodologies of sales and lead generation. We come up with a full strategic plan for the club, and then we execute on the plan. Our compensation structures is set up to where we really don't make any money unless clubs are being successful. We've partnered with over 70 clubs across the country, and all have seen enormous success. On average, our clubs see a little over a 400% increase in initiation fees sold from the year prior to bringing us in. So again, pretty simply, we sell memberships. That's what we do.
Well, that's terrific. I'll tell you what, you penned an article for us and it's gotten a lot of good feedback on the website, which is why I wanted you to have on the podcast. Basically, 5 things that clubs get wrong with memberships. And
sure.
One thing you talked about, you kicked it off with COVID's impact. Can you kind of delve into that a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. No, I mean, the last few years have been wild. That's for sure. What we first thought when COVID started happening and we had government shutdowns, we were kind of, oh my gosh, how is this going to impact the club industry? And, we had a lot of clubs in the Northeast that were having to shut down for a little period of time. And so we were concerned, but then obviously we saw the boom, right, that all clubs saw. And that was really unprecedented, and it was fantastic. It allowed clubs to reinvest back into their clubs, do capital improvements. But we are seeing things start to normalize a little bit. At Capstone, we track countless amounts of trends and data across all of our properties. And one thing that we have seen very clearly is that the number of organic inbound leads, so when I'm talking organic inbound leads, I'm talking website inquiries, call-ins, right? Just things that happen organically at clubs. They're down significantly, right? January, February were pretty level as compared to same time period last year, right in the peak of the COVID boom, right? March was down 15% of incoming organic leads. April was down 29%. May was down 43%, so a significant trend. In June, it's starting to bounce back a little bit because we've made some adjustments at our clubs. We've started to put into place a lot more lead generators, and so now it's only down 38% year over year. So again, we're shifting strategies. We're starting to move into more lead generation because people, right? There's competition again, right? For the longest time, clubs didn't really have competition, right? You couldn't do anything. You couldn't travel. Golf was a great escape, right? So to think that that is going to continue now that people are traveling again, they're having to go back to work, the kids' sports are back into play, right? There's a lot more competitions for people's recreational time. So it's imperative that clubs right now are starting to think a little bit bigger picture and a little longer term of how are we going to respond as things begin to normalize. I don't like to look at it as a drop because I don't really feel like it's a drop. It's more of a normalization, right? Going back to pre-pandemic trends, which was still great trends, but just not that huge shoot up that we all enjoyed.
Yeah, right. I mean, COVID was the COVID boom was huge for the industry, obviously.
Yep.
But I mean, it's just natural. As we're getting back to normal, levels are going to normalize. Hey,
that's right.
You had mentioned a devoted sales staff. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. So one of the things that we do at Capstone is one of the founding principles of Capstone. I used to play golf professionally. I played out on tour for 4 years. I would go to all these different clubs, and because I had a little history in membership sales prior to turning pro, I would always introduce myself to the pro staff, the general managers, the membership directors, talk to them. And I would always ask how their membership was doing. And, one of the things at the time, again, this was dating myself a little bit, back in 2011, 2012, they all would say things like, hey, we could always use more members, right? And so I tried to trace that back to, why do so many clubs struggle, right? You obviously have your upper level elite clubs where they're always going to be on wait lists. They don't need really help, but there's thousands of mid-level to even high level clubs that, really struggle to get a full roster. And I traced it back to, sorry about that, phone just dropped a little bit. I traced it back to the sales process. And when you look at the quintessential membership director, right, they hold a ton of different hats. Right, they're doing member relations, they have billing questions, they're planning member events, all really important things that need to be done in a club setting, right? But inevitably, if you're focused on these things, sales and lead generation is going to fall by the wayside, right? So what we believe in is having both of those things happening, a solely dedicated sales staff to bringing new incoming members into your club. And ideally, it's somebody that understands the intricacies of member sales, right? They know that it's an experience sale. It's not insurance. It's not a car, right? It's not something you have to do. It's a luxury. All right. So they have to be sold on the dream. They have to be sold on the lifestyle. And having somebody that can dedicate fully their time to doing really high quality lead generation and conducting very good tours, taking them through a fantastic sales process, right? If you do those things and then manage the whole process from a data-driven approach, that's where you start seeing some really big increases in your membership sales efforts.
Hey, if I'm counting correctly, I've heard the term lead generation now 3 times. Maybe
Okay.
I may have missed one. Can you dig a little deeper? You'd mentioned that you're changing some lead generation through the the normalization. Can you talk a little bit more about what you guys are doing differently at your clubs?
Yeah, through COVID, a lot of it was organic. You were seeing a big influx of just organic incoming leads. We also shifted our focus to more virtual, right? During COVID. So we were doing a lot of online ads. We were conducting virtual tours. And, we were able to obviously maximize on that boom. Now that things are going back to normal, we're putting into place a lot more events, right? Open house style events, throwing things like summer festivals at the clubs. And we invite the community to the clubs. We have membership represented there. We take them through a process, and then that's how we're generating leads. So still continuing the online presence, which is so important, but also now starting to layer more in-person things as that's kind of starting to normalize a little bit more. And that's what we're seeing. Yeah.
So one of the benefits of the COVID boom, and there were plenty, but one of the benefits was an influx of money. And a lot of that money has been turned around. You need money to make money, obviously. Capital investments in the club. Talk a little bit more about the capital investments you guys are seeing.
Yeah, no, I mean, capital investments are so important in a club. You always want to stay modern. You want to be shifting with, what the clientele, what the potential members want, what your current members want. But I do think some clubs made a mistake by investing all of the cash that was coming in through the boom and just popping it back into big club renovations, right? We see so much success across the country at clubs that are not doing massive club renovations. They're just making small tweaks, right? Maybe it's adding a little outdoor dining space. Maybe it's redoing the bunkers. Maybe it's adding splash pad, things like that, right? So again, I want to emphasize that capital improvements are great, and you can leverage that very strong in the marketplace, right? That helps the sales process. Hey, look at all the investment that's happening at the club. Look at what's happening now. You can usually tie that investment with a price increase on your initiation fee, so you can leverage that in the market as well. But I think that clubs need to really think about it, especially now that we're seeing downtrends, before spending all the capital reserves that they, were able to save through the COVID boom, and just prepare for the potential of a recession, right? It's on everybody's mind. Look at the market, look at everything. Right. So I think now is the time when hold back some spend, really refocus on high quality lead generation, focus on your sales process. And it kind of moves into our last topic that we talked about, the wait list, right? Making sure that you continue to stack members, that you resist the urge to cap your membership too early, before, doing all the appropriate due diligence, all those things. So yeah, that's kind of what we've seen with capital investment. Very important, but do it smart, and don't just blow through your money.
Right. And that wait list, I mean, that is a word that clubs have been dying to hear and really
Sure.
haven't heard for a decade, really. So
Yeah.
this is kind of new. What can you say about that wait list? You'd mentioned not capping your membership just quite so quickly.
Yeah.
How important it is to really work that wait list?
Yeah, it's more complex than you would think, right? In particular, equity-run clubs are very quick to talk about a wait list and getting their clubs to a wait list. And again, there's so many good things about a wait list, but prior to doing that, I think clubs need to be realistic, right? And understand that, hey, just golf in general, saw such a massive spike. I mean, we're talking literally 30%, 30-40%. Just your current members played 30 to 40% more throughout COVID, right? So that right there inevitably is going to really stack your tee sheet. It's going to make it feel like there's course compaction. But now that that's normalizing, first things first, like really work with your golf staff, and see what the tee sheet is doing. Track the trends, because if they're going down and you cap, that prospect may go to another club, right, that doesn't have a wait list. So that's important. First things first, check your tee sheet, check your usage, see if your club is really at compaction. And if it is, then the next best thing to do is then take a look, do a full membership audit of all your categories, right? We've gone into so many different clubs, it's crazy, that have 40, 50 membership categories, right? And it's through selling, preview style memberships in the past, or maybe when the recession hit, they did group deals or whatever it may be. So oftentimes, and more often than not, you have people at clubs that have same access levels as full members that are paying only a fraction of what full members are paying. So then it's time to make that hard decision and say, hey, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, we love having you as a member, but here's where we're at. We're moving all of these subcategories into a full golf membership. Here's a dues increase. Here's an upgrade if it's necessary, right? Again, that's where you really need a professional looking at it and advising you through this process. But right, condensing those things down, it's going to either force attrition, so people are going to resign if they have a big dues increase, or they're going to stay members, right? And they're going to become full members, and the club's going to get a really nice capital injection with, upgrade fees, with new dues, all that, right? So that's imperative that you do that as well. But pending all that shakes out, right, and you're still at course compaction, you've done your audit, you've moved lower level categories that have the same levels as full members into the higher level, and you're still at compaction, then apply a wait list. But you have to have a strategy. You want to keep marketing your membership, right? We have multiple clubs across the country that are on 2-3 year wait list, and we're still selling. We've raised the initiation fee significantly. The club's still collecting capital through initiation fees, like a half down payment. And we're able to keep selling, right? And now they're at true long-term financial stability, right? Because they know for 3 years, even if we hit a recession and we get a big 10, 15% attrition rate over the next 6-8 months, something like that, right? They know that they have 50, 60 people on a wait list that they can replace those dues instantaneously. They're not gonna miss a stride. So then at that point, right, if you're on a 2, 3, 4, 5 year wait list, okay, then you can talk about, okay, now let's shift into, let's really worry about attrition. Let's focus on attrition, making sure that's as low as possible. So yeah, again, I think people jump to a wait list a little too quickly, and they don't do the appropriate steps prior to actually implementing a wait list at clubs.
Wow. Thank you for all that information. That's fantastic. And I hope it's going to help everybody that's listening right now. I'm going to get you out on this one. Grab your crystal ball, if you will.
Okay.
What does the next year? Okay, let's hope. I mean, COVID may never go away entirely, but let's hope that all the social distancing, all that stuff that we've heard about, right, is gone. What are you looking at in a year? What are you looking at in 5 years? I mean, if you can kind of piece together the future.
As far as where the industry as a whole will be, or membership sales in particular?
Membership sales particularly, but industry as a whole, you can big picture if you'd like, but as
Yeah.
far as really digging down on memberships, what do you think?
Yeah, I think there's so many variables, right? Memberships are tied to the market. They are, right? That's discretionary spend. It's one of the first things to go in a recession. So I do see it falling a little bit. We're already seeing that. Again, leads are down, and that's kind of your canary in the coal mine, right? Your typical sales cycle, which is another interesting thing that COVID saw, your sales cycles were very, very quick. People were making decisions so fast in the matter of like 2 or 3 touches. Typically, it takes about 12 to 14 touches for a member to convert, right? And we're moving back into those cycles where people are taking a little bit longer to decide. So I think over the next month, we are going to continue to see a downturn. I don't think it's going to get real drastic. People are still doing very good in business. There's still a lot of money out there. We're still selling a ton of memberships across the board. I think it's going to normalize. I think it's going to go back to pre-pandemic levels. And then I think we're probably going to stay there for a little bit. And the clubs that are really taking a proactive approach to sales and lead generation and making sure that they have a team dedicated to that, they're going to continue to see immense growth within their markets. The clubs that aren't, and they kind of slip into the pattern of just letting the phone ring, letting organic leads come to them, as we are seeing that slow, they're going to start to struggle. So again, I definitely encourage all membership directors, club leaders out there to take a true, honest assessment of their sales process and their lead generation process, and have a look at it, right? If you feel like you could get better and things are starting to slow down, give somebody like us a call. We do complimentary club assessments. It's risk-free, no obligation. We'll take a look at what you guys are doing now. We'll give you some feedback on what we feel like you could be doing better. And then if it makes sense for us to partner, we'll give you a proposal for our services. But that's kind of what I see over the next year, 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But golf is in a great state. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to be doom and gloom. It is in a great state. The industry as a whole has done incredibly through the whole COVID crisis, right? Reacting, making sure they had safe places for their members, and really being able to capture a ton of new market coming their way. So I'm really proud of the industry, but I do want to let people know, again, these trends that we are seeing are happening. These are facts. So we want to make sure we're prepared and adjusting our strategies as they happen.
Hey, I'm a club. How am I going to get a hold of you?
Yeah, pretty easy. You can go to our website. It's www.capstone-hospitality.com. You can email us at info@capstone-hospitality.com, or you can give us a call. My personal cell phone number is 561-445-7448. Give me a call. We'll put you in touch with our VP and EVP of Business Development, and we'll start taking a look at your club.
Fantastic. Hey, if you're calling Brian, please, normal business hours, okay? Let's not call him at 10, 11 o'clock at night.
No, I'm good with that.
No, okay. Brian Friedrichs, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you. You want to hear a quick funny story about business hours?
Give it to me.
It's a good one. So I just had my first kid with my wife, born on 2/2/22, right? So she's in labor, and I get a text message from Nemacolin and Woodlands Resort, Tom Smith, great guy. And he says, "Hey, interested in your guys' service. We want to do an incredible membership offering. We hear you're the company to get in contact with." I say, "Tom, I'd love to talk to you right now, but my wife is in labor. Can I call you in a little bit?" And his mind was blown that I even responded. So we ended up, partnering with them, and it's a great story, a great intro story. So you can call me anytime.
Fantastic. Hey, I've been to Nemacolin. It's a beautiful property.
Crazy, isn't it?
It's gorgeous.
Wait till
renovated the golf course. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's amazing. Wait till you see the membership offering we're gonna release there. It's gonna be a special one. So
make sure you hit us up with some information.
I will, absolutely. Thanks, Rob.
All right, take care, Brian. Bye-bye now.
Later.